So you had a question about foaming. So I thought that this would be a good video. It's John Keirstead from Arctic Spas, Vancouver Island. We're going to talk about foaming in hot tubs and what we could do to deal with them. First of all, if it's an Arctic spa, you're on a salt system most likely, and you've got ozone to help you with the spa. But when we get foaming in hot tubs, there's a number of different things that can actually cause the foaming. And people don't really think about it. Obviously, soap and dish soap and the bubbles, that you give the kids the little bubble things. If that bubble thing ends up in the water, you are going to have a very, very bubbly spa. And you can usually tell when you look at the bubbles. The other thing is when the jets are actually on, the way the system works is it draws air into the jets as well, which is what you see these bubbles here. And if I had it on high, there'd be more and bigger bubbles and stuff. And you'll see that they kind of sit on the top for a while and then they burst, right? Well, them bursting, this is just normal air being introduced and getting a bubble. And so when you shut the spa off, if the bubbles go away really fast, then it's probably just that. It's probably just the foam from that. But it's when that stuff hangs around. If you've got these little islands of bubbles like bubble bath in your spa, well, then it could be soaps. Soaps is common, but a lot of the times it's actually contaminants that we've introduced to the spa water. So where do these contaminants come from? Well, your swimwear, like your swimsuits, and sometimes, especially if people wear clothing in there, like if you're wearing a t-shirt and cut-off shorts, well, the laundry detergent that makes it smell clean and fresh, it's soap, right? Those soaps get in there. When you get soap in water, soaps can also be residual shampoo, residual conditioners. It can be the other hair products, to make your hair shiny, or mousses and gels and all of these things. Hair products is a really big contributor to foaming in spas, as well as makeups, lotions. I always have troubles with my spa in the summertime because we're right next to the lake and we're out there playing in the lake, but we got sunscreen on. Right? So I always end up with this oily sunscreen. Well, all of those things, when put into the spa environment with these natural bubbles of air that are being introduced, can create foam. And you get this foam. So you get this foam in there. So the first way to deal with foam is don't introduce those contaminants to the tub. So, if you have lots of hair products and that sort of thing, you may find it's a lot easier to wash your hair or keep your hair up out of the spa. If you're a lotion person and stuff, maybe washing or having a shower beforehand. I don't like having to take a shower before, because then it's a whole other project that I have to do before I actually get to use my hot tub. And the systems are pretty good at dealing with a certain amount of contamination. But if there's too much contamination, then you'll end up with this foam. If you have Arctic spa, or you have a spa that's equipped with an ozone generator, or UV/ozone generator, just turn it up. In most cases, those run on the low speed of the pump, and increase your filter cycle. On a lot of spas nowadays, we can change that. And by default, most spas are running 4 to 6 hours, maybe 8 hours a day. You can change that to run them up to 24 hours a day. So I tell people, when you have any water chemistry problem, it's cloudy, it doesn't smell right, doesn't look right, or otherwise, one of the very first things you should always do, and if you have an Arctic spa, always do this, change your filtration cycle to 24 hours. That does two things. One, if there is any floating contaminants and stuff, it's going to filter more. And you can't over-filter your water. It's going to filter more of the stuff through the filter. You're going to be able to capture that stuff that's floating around and at least isolate it in the filter. The second thing that it does, though, is we've linked the low speed of the pump to the ozone generator, so that when the pump is engaged, the ozone generation will also happen. And so ozone is an extremely powerful oxidizer. That's why it works so well. And basically what it does is this very unstable molecule. It just wants to find something to oxidize so it can get back to oxygen. So it's going to be around there. If there's contaminants in the water, it's going to start breaking those contaminants down. And it's about 2,000 times more reactive than the chlorine that we use for sanitization. So it's just a great helper molecule. And what I like about it is its byproduct is oxygen. Right? So it breaks things down to their simplest molecules and leaves a byproduct of oxygen. It also breaks down reacted chlorine and stuff, which causes that smell and stuff that you might not like. Now, sometimes that's not enough. You know, you get the filtration cycle up, maybe you bump your chlorine up a little bit, right, by increasing your output for Spa Boy. You know, Spa Boy can be low, medium, or high, or if you're on an Enzyme or Sultron Mini, increasing the numbers of hours a day that would run would be a way that you could help address, because chlorine will act as a sanitizer, but it's also an oxidizer, so it can also break down some of those other things that are in the water and cause less foaming there. Sometimes there's just too much stuff in the water. We do have a couple of other very specific products that we use for dealing with the various things that can happen. And so you have your core maintenance products that you use to keep your spa clean, and then you have a host of other specialty products that are designed to deal with specific situations. So, you know, defoamers, descummers, metal removers, clarifiers, all of these different things, they're very specialized to do a specific thing. And we're going to go through and explain to you when you might use one, when you might use another, and there's some specific ones for foam that we'll talk about. And it's important to understand how these things work so that you can utilize them correctly, because in many cases they're not dealing with the underlying problem that led to the foam. So again, if we can isolate what the underlying problem is and just stop doing that, then you won't have a foaming issue in the first place. But if you do have a foaming issue, then there are some products that we could use to deal with that, in addition to the stuff that's already on the spa that you can utilize as well. So here's one of the products that you'll see in various forms of it in different stores or otherwise, but they call foam dissolve or foam away or foam be gone or something like that. Well, what is it, right? And does it work? Well, it absolutely does work. If you have foam in the water and you put this in, it'll literally start dissolving it. It floats along the top and it takes the foam and just makes it so that it doesn't bubble anymore. But this is like taking a cough drop for a sore throat. You know, it deals with the symptom, which is the sore throat, but it doesn't deal with the underlying problem. In fact, it can actually exacerbate the underlying problem, because the underlying problem is that there's something in the water causing foaming, and this doesn't deal with that. What this deals with is the foam itself. So it creates a product on the top of the water that doesn't allow bubbles to be produced, right? And you'll literally see bubbles as they run into it just dissolving away. So it is foam dissolve, right? And so when would this make sense to use? Well, if you planned a hot tub party, or you've got a big date with your girlfriend or your wife, and you want to make sure that the spa is beautiful, and you open it up and it's got bubbles all over and you're like, ah, dang, right? Well, this is a great product because you can literally put it in and 30 seconds later there's no foam. Right? So if you're entertaining or that sort of thing, it can cause a slight cloudiness to the water because, like I said, it's putting a film essentially on top. I believe most of these are some silicone-based product. And it's a contaminant, just like anything else that we put into the spa. It's a contaminant. So eventually this is going to get in your filter, and it'll shorten the lifespan of your filter. So you want to use it liberally, right? It's the sort of product that if in that situation you don't want to have a bunch of foam, you're entertaining or otherwise, and you want to just get it out of your way quickly, this is a great product for that. Is there other products that you could use? Well, certainly you could use Refresh. Refresh is a non-chlorine shock, or it's an actual oxidizer. It says it oxidizes contaminants. So it's kind of like a chemical form of the ozone. Right? So this does the same sort of job that ozone would do, but you're introducing another chemical to the water, right? So our philosophy is kind of one where, you know, wherever possible, we don't necessarily want you using a whole bunch of different chemicals. You know, in the old days, that was the maintenance program, is they'd have all of these different products that you use, and when you have this problem, you use this. When you have that problem, you use this. But then you've got all these different chemicals in the water, and that can lead to a whole bunch of sets of problems. Not the least of which is, I don't really like sitting in a bunch of chemicals, which a lot of customers have come back and said to us, which is why we've kind of tried to go down the road that the least amount of chemicals to maintain safe, beautiful water is kind of our goal. So that's why you want to use the right chemicals at the right time. But there is a time and a place to use this. If you've got a lot of like sunscreen and that sort of thing, and perhaps you don't have an ozone system, then Refresh is going to add some oxidation capability to your water to help get that out of there, right? It's important when you use any of the chemical products to turn the jets on, get the product well dispersed into the water, and then leave the lid open for a while so it has a chance to off-gas any of the off-gassing that would take place, and so you don't damage the underside of your cover. You could use the Boost, or if you're using a granular chlorine, you could use a granular chlorine to increase the oxidation capability. You also increase the sanitization. So sometimes the cloud that you get in your tub, or the foam that you get from your tub, is that there's an abundance of bacteria colonies growing in there because it doesn't have enough sanitizer. So this could be a good solution for that. Add some more chlorine. If you can have more chlorine in there, it's less likely that you'll have contamination, at least from bacteria point of view. But Boost and Refresh both have the capability of oxidizing as well as a secondary operation. That's its main job. This is a secondary job for the sanitizer. We used to have a form of chlorine called lithium chloride, which I really, really liked because it was unstabilized chlorine, which I can tell you a lot about stabilization of chlorine. For hot tub use, I don't believe that we should use stabilized chlorine. This lithium chloride was also very, very reactive. So even though it didn't create much chlorine in the water, it reacts very, very quickly. So it was awesome for getting rid of foams and stuff like that. Unfortunately, because of the advent of lithium batteries, that industry has just taken all of the lithium on the market and put it into making batteries. So we can't get that product anymore. But there is liquid chlorine, unstabilized, so no cyanuric acid, liquid chlorine, which we've actually ordered in. It's similar to the bleach that you'd get at a store, without the scents and other things that they can put into detergents and bleaches and stuff like that. It's meant specifically for pools and spas, and that's actually another way to help deal with foam. There's a couple of other techniques that we've learned over the years. I found a lot of the times the foam is caused by one of these contaminants that's kind of floating around in the water. So if we can get that out of the water, that can often solve the problem. So one of the other products that we use is Easy Clear. And this is also really, really good for clarity if you're trying to clear the water up. They kind of go hand in hand. Lots of times when your water's foamy, it's also cloudy. So Easy Clear, this product, if used properly, can not only clear the water, it can get foam out of there. Because what it basically does is it causes the particles that are floating around in there, that are often quite small and may be able to pass right through your filter, it causes them to stick together. So you get all this stuff sticking together, and it makes it easier for the filter to filter that stuff out of the water. So in a way, it makes your filter sticky, if you will. So if you got this sticky filter and you start running water through it, it starts catching the stuff that's in there. But there's kind of a little hack that we technicians use. When I use this on cloudy water, it actually causes foaming, a lot of foaming. So you get this stuff floating up, but then I take a shot vac and I shot back all of that foam off of the top of the water. And so I've literally taken it out of the water, and it's not getting trapped by the filter. It's not entering the filter, so it doesn't clog up your filter or anything like that. And literally, if I run all the pumps on high speed and kind of try to make foam happen, I get all that foam and stuff to come to the surface and float on the top, so I can actually use the shop vac, pull that stuff out. I do that 2 or 3 cycles, so maybe an hour of effort, and then the water is left sparkling clear and without foam. So that product can be used to do that.
What if you don't have a shop vac?
Well, if you don't have a shop vac, then what works well is these nets. Like I'll use the net to scoop it out. I often people will have one of these, and you use it for getting needles and leaves and things like that out of the water. But it can also very easily take the foam out, right? And you're flipping the foam out. I've even used a cardboard box, the end of a cardboard box, to just flip it out. But the best is actually just a vacuum, shop vac, because you can set the shop vac so it's not sucking up water; it's just sucking up the stuff on the top, and that's really what we want. The interesting thing is that most of the stuff that causes foaming is oil-based, like our body oils and a lot of the stuff that causes cloudiness is oil-based. It's kind of like a film on the top, right? So if you can get that stuff to all bubble, now the shop vac can actually pull that off. So there's a hack if you haven't got a shop vac. you might want to get one because they're not that expensive, and you can use them for when you spill stuff on your floor and stuff too, right? So there's another product, the Enzyme Discummer. So Discummer is actually using enzymes. So we have enzymes in our body. So when we eat something, the enzymes go in there and they break down the foods into the base molecules, right? So your carbs and your protein and your whatever, it breaks it all down, these different enzymes. So you've got enzymes for different things. Well, these enzymes are specifically designed to deal with the stuff that we'd have in a spa, like organic oils, organic soaps. You know, it's designed to literally eat that stuff and break them down to their simplest molecules so they can be dissolved in the water and your problem's gone away. Now, the one thing about this is that if I use this product and I put it in there, and at the same time I bump up the ozone and I bump up, or I add some refresh or add a whole bunch of boost, these things will actually destroy this, right? Because this is like it's not really living, it's really in that, it's like yeast, you know, it's one of those things that's not quite a living product, but kind of a living product. But it can be oxidized. So if I'm using ozone at high output, or I'm using refresh to oxidize, or I'm using the sanitizer to oxidize, I'll actually oxidize this stuff and it won't be able to do its job. So this is the sort of product where you have to use this before you do those other steps, right? But it does work very well. And it's natural. If you want to use natural products, I think this is a really clever way of dealing with the problem. And what I like about it is, unlike foam dissolve, it's actually dealing with the underlying problem, right? As is oxidization. We're dealing with the stuff that's causing the foam, and that's what this is doing. So they're very different products that are kind of tackling the same issue from different angles. So that's Enzyme Discummer, and there's lots of different names for these things.
Do you need to vacuum anything away on that?
No, because it breaks it down. Your filter will catch that. I haven't really tried using the Discummer and then the Easy Clear afterwards and the vacuum hack because it already dealt with the problem and the spa was clear again. So I didn't think to do that, but I suppose it would if there was. Again, it's breaking it down to really, really small at the molecular level. So it's actually dissolving that stuff into the water. So it's a good choice that people could use. And that's really, the best way for dealing with the foam that you can get in your water. Now, sometimes none of this stuff's going to work. If you've got enough, if you take an entire bottle of dish detergent and throw it into the hot tub, I think that it would be extremely hard to use a chemical product. The amount of chemical product you'd have to use and the amount of ozone or anything you'd have to use to actually get that to clear and nice again would be more trouble than it's worth and a lot of money. You'd be far better served to just drain the spa. At that point, I would recommend using Fresh Start. Fresh Start is a flush that's used. So if you ever buy somebody's old tub, or if you've left your tub, or you've used your tub for a couple of years, Fresh Start is designed to clean out all of the pipes and stuff like that and start fresh, so like it was new again. So if I had foamy water that had lots of problems in it, when I drain it, before I actually go and drain it, I'd add the Fresh Start, clear out all the pipes, make sure it gets all that stuff, and then drain and fill the tub a couple of times, right? And make sure all that stuff's out of there so that it doesn't come back. A good example that was given to me earlier was like, when you get a dishcloth and you've got a lot of soap in it and then you try to rinse it. I mean, it takes forever. You got to keep doing it, squish it out, keep doing it, squish it out, keep doing it, squish it out. So soaps and stuff can be really hard to get rid of once they're in the water, and sometimes the only thing you can do is start fresh with new water. It's the most economical way to handle it. So to recap, the most important thing to do though is if you're getting foaming, you should be asking yourself, what's causing the foaming? Where is this foam coming from, right? And then start eliminating. A lot of times it's going to be something you didn't expect. Hair products, makeups, lotions, potions, that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's the other stuff that you can buy from places and you can add it in. Like some places have these fragrances and stuff. Well, if this fragrance is an oil-based fragrance, then that could cause a problem. That's why we tell people you can't use essential oils in your spa because they're a contaminant that's going to cause these types of problems. Not to mention a lot of essential oils and stuff are they'll actually melt plastic. Have you ever put on the mussel insect repellent and then touch something plastic? The plastic just peels right off in your fingers. So you want to make sure that whatever you're putting in your spa isn't going to damage the surface of it. These scents, if they're alcohol based, which these ones are, if they're alcohol based, then what happens is that they'll dissolve and they'll evaporate out of the water, so they don't stay in the water. So make sure you're real careful about the types of products that you put in there in the first place, so you don't have that foaming. That's really the issue. If you do have a problem with foaming, increase the filter cycle, get more ozonation. If you don't have an ozonator, then look at using an oxidizer. External oxidizer. You could use, if you don't have oxidizer, you could use a little more of the whatever you use as a sanitizer, because the secondary role of those things is as oxidizer. And you could look at using a specialty product. And if you really have to get rid of the foam in a hurry, then a little bit of foam dissolve can solve your problem. Don't use too much of it. So as luck would have it, we're getting ready to film one of the other spas, and it turns out it has foam in it. And you can see when you look at this foam, there's almost like it's getting more and more solid as it moves in. And when I shut this off, you're going to see that it still sticks around. And you can see it's almost solid. So when I see this type of foam, I can see there's physically a contaminant in the water. And the nice thing is as we stimulate everything and we add the air, using the air dials, we add the air into the water, it's actually bringing all of the contaminant to the surface. So this is the ideal type of product where if we add a little bit of Easy Clear, this is actually going to make this happen even more. So this stuff that's sticking around will actually stick together and may even develop a color. Sometimes it looks like a rusty kind of color, sometimes a dark brownish sort of color, and it will all stick together. It depends on what type of contaminant it is. It'll stick together, and then you can shop vac that out with the shop vac. So I'm going to see if we got a shop vac around here and see if I can demo the hack to you so you can see how we do it, and we'll use a little bit of Easy Clear and away we go. All right, so I got the Easy Clear product. When I'm doing this hack, a lot of the times I tell people if you have a microfilter, take the filter out. I'm not worrying about it because if we clog up this filter, I'm just going to put a new filter in. But yeah, those microfilters, if you're using a pleated style filter, then that's no problem because you can always just rinse those afterwards. The microfilters though, the holes in those are so porous that if I use this product, it's going to clog that filter up and you're going to end up having to throw that filter out. So this is also when I would use a rescue bag. So we offer those rescue bags that can just attach to the bottom of the active skim filter, right? It can attach to those active skim filters. It screws in the bottom. That micro bag could actually be used to catch all this. It's basically, this is a filter enhancer. It makes your filter work better, but it will clog the filter up if it's a microfilter. So sometimes using a rescue bag or using a pleated filter. If you have the short little pleated filter, you could just leave that one in because that one can be rinsed afterwards. Because you're going to see once I add this, I'm going to overdose it. So I'm actually going to use more of this than what it says here because I want it to really work quickly and to stick to the stuff that's floating in the water. So I'm going to let it glug in there. A bunch of it is going to go into the filter. Then I'm just going to let that go around, and you'll start to see this stuff is going to clog even more. We might even get a color out of it. We'll see what happens. So I'll just set that there. I've got a very loud shop vac. We have some smaller ones that we have in the service vehicles. Yeah, you can see the extra foam that's starting to appear now. So what it's doing, it's taking those small little pieces of contaminant and sticking them together. Right, and we're kind of getting, wow, this is looking like a bubble bath. Now what's interesting is that it's not really particularly oily or scuzzy. I don't see a particular color, which tells me that most likely this is soaps of some form. Maybe lotion, hand lotion or something like that, makeups, hair products, but something that's soap based, so it's cleaner. It's not from body oils or anything like that, or you'd see more brown and stuff like that in there. Now you get the Very loud shot vac, you're probably not going to hear me. And I just suck this stuff up. Now this can take, 20 minutes. It could take an hour. You may have to turn your pumps on high speed a few times. So we're going to use the magical digital photography to speed this up. You can see we're back at the hot tub after doing the foam hack or cloudy water hack. We used the Arctic Pure Easy Clear product. Lots of companies have something like this, Polysheen, clarifier, they'll have all this sort of stuff. And there's chemical versions of this, and then there's another version of this that I really like. That was the Arctic Pure Easy Clear product. There's lots of other similar products on the market, Polysheen, clarifiers, all kinds of different ones. That's a chemical-based product that doesn't have the skull and crossbones or dissolving hand on it, so it's not corrosive, it's not poisonous, but it is a chemical. And every time we add a chemical to the water, that's something else that's in the water. I do like this other product from Natural Chemistry that's using, it's based on crab shells. It's really works essentially exactly the same way, but it's more natural. Sea Clear is another product that is exactly the same as this one. So if you want something that's a little more natural, this is a really good product. You can see the spa, we've been able to clarify it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the jets so you can see that we're able to also deal with that foam. So the foam that you're seeing now is largely just from the air, right? The air has created this, and how we can tell is if I shut this off, it'll dissolve back into the water quite quickly. So that's just air. It's when you get that stuff floating around and stuff where you're dealing with something in the water, and you can tell there was kind of a cloudiness to the water as well. That treatment was able to take that stuff out of the water, and that means that you don't have to add anything to deal with it because it's literally out of the water. So that's one of the ways we're going to deal with contaminants that are in the water, is just get them out of the water. So that quick little smart friend shop vac hack, I think you'll find a really good way for dealing with foam and water clarity issues. Coming at you from the inner web world of electronics and digital lifestyle, John Keirstead from Arctic Spas, Vancouver Island. Thank you for listening to our video.